Yes, very sorry to hear about the passing of Steve Mongo McMichael a little before I went live tonight. Super Bowl champion with the Chicago Bears back in 1986. As wrestling fans, though, probably most well known for his time in WCW, both as an announcer and a wrestler. I remember when he was an announcer, he had his little chihuahua with him. I forgot what he called the chihuahua, but he had the chihuahua with him on commentary. And then, of course, later on became a member of the Four Horsemen, former United States champion. Was Mongo the best wrestler? No, he was not. He was not always the most graceful. But then again, I really wouldn't expect someone like Mongo to be the most graceful. He was Mongo. That's who he was. He was a very charismatic personality who was struck down by, honestly, there are a lot of terrible illnesses out there. ALS is just the worst of the worst. It's just a horrible disease. And to see what he has gone through over these last several years was just really depressing to see. I know he was at least alive to see his induction into the Football Hall of Fame, which was very cool. But he entered hospice care this morning, and then it didn't take very long before the news came out that he had passed away. So condolences to his family and friends. I was very sorry to hear about that. But we talk about Dynamite tonight, which is why we're here. And we now know what the finals will be for the Owen Hart Foundation tournament on the women's side. The finals for Double or Nothing are now set. Kris Statlander and Jamie Hayter, they had the main event spot all to themselves on the show tonight. And they gave us a good one, with Jamie Hayter punching her ticket to the finals of the Owen, where she will challenge the belt collector, Mercedes Moné. And that will take place May 25th at Double or Nothing. We also had two pretty fun tag team matches on the show tonight that kind of carried the show in a lot of ways. FTR, after their 1 week suspension, was back, and they have a new agent. And it is probably not someone who you would think. Although I'm happy with the decision because we finally have this person back on TV. But they have new representation. Bobby Lashley is still giving MJF the thumbs down for the Hurt Syndicate as they continue to drag that final decision out. This was not last week. Let me just say that up front. This episode was not the exciting kind of all-timer episode that Dynamite was in Boston last week, especially in that venue they were in. It was just a fun show last week. And this was a good show, but this was not last week. This was definitely a come down from that. But it was a show that, for me anyway, it breezed by pretty quickly. We had some good wrestling with some angles tucked in between. I thought overall it was a good show. It was going to be hard to replicate what they had last week. You weren't going to be able to replicate that ending, with Samoa Joe standing in the ring with, new trios champions and everybody celebrating and all that. That's not something you're going to be able to do every week. But I thought the show did what it needed to do. And they have also announced when we will see Samoa Joe challenging Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. We have a date. It is, and this I don't like, it is going to be, they have announced another 4-hour block of programming. Now, they had already announced 2 of them for the month of June. So June 4th, they're bringing back Fyter Fest, which is going to be a combined Dynamite and Collision back-to-back on June 4th. That's a 4-hour block. The next week, June 11th, they're doing, I think what they're calling their Summer Blockbuster. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, that's the Summer Blockbuster episode. Coming up on June 11th. That's also going to be 4 hours, back to back. And then the week after that is when they're going to be at Arena Mexico. You're going to have a lot of CMLL talent on that show. So there are no pay-per-views in the month of June for AEW. So they're loading up on stuff in this way. But before we get to either of those 4-hour blocks, we have one on May 14th in Chicago. That there was a Collision scheduled for May 17th, and the news came out earlier that they had actually canceled it. It was actually going to be in Wichita. So they canceled it, and now we're getting Dynamite and Collision back-to-back, and it will be on that show that Samoa Joe will challenge Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. So if you're hot on Dynamite and Collision, get ready, because you're going to be getting a lot of 4-hour blocks coming up soon, which I think is ridiculous. But that's what we're getting. Thankfully, tonight was not 4 hours. This is your AEW Dynamite review. It is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. I am the Solomonster. Thank you guys for joining me here to cap off what has been a very, very busy last week here on the channel. All but I think last Thursday, there have been shows, and I have been live on the channel going back to Dynamite last week. We had Dynamite, we had SmackDown, we had 2 nights of WrestleMania, we had episode 9, 10 of the podcast in between, and then we had the Raw post-show on Monday night. And so I had a little break on the channel last night, although JD and I went almost 5 hours for Tuesday Night Titans last night, which was the biggest show we've ever done. And here we are tonight to cap it all off with Dynamite, because I will not be here on Friday. I will be out of town, so there will be no SmackDown review. So this is our last time live together until next Monday. So let's make it a good one here. Like and subscribe. Super chats are open. You may see them popping up on your screen here. That's what they are. Don't be alarmed. And I'm going to read all your messages here a little bit later on in the stream. I appreciate all of the support you guys have shown me over the past week, to where we have blown past 86,000 subscribers. So now we are on our way to 87 and then 88. And slowly but surely, we're going to chip away and make our way towards 90K. And also, my Mets have won 7 straight. And we swept the Phillies out of New York. So it's a good day. How could I not be in a good mood after that? Come on. Dynamite open with Tony Schiavone in the ring to introduce a very special guest. They announced the other day that Master P would be making an appearance on Dynamite. They were in New Orleans tonight. Master P, obviously from New Orleans, ties to the city. So he was the special invited guest tonight. Tony Schiavone introduced him out to the ring. And here comes the No Limit Soldier on his way out. We have not seen him on Turner Television since the days, the dying days. We're talking like 99, 2000, dying days of WCW. So Master P was on the show tonight, and he was out to introduce the brand new AEW Trios champions, Samoa Joe, Katsuyori Shibata, and Powerhouse Hobbs, the Ops, after their big win over the Death Riders at the end of Dynamite last week. Yes, Justin says, hooty hoo. Hooty hoo. So they made their way out to the ring, and Samoa Joe thanked Master P for all that he has done for the city of New Orleans, all that he has done for all of the student athletes in the city. They got cut off very quickly by the Death Riders music, and Marina Shafir walks out alone. But as is always the case, it's a trap. It was a distraction. Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta, they attack the Ops from behind. Now, Master P is still standing in the ring. They don't touch Master P. It was basically hands off Master P tonight. So they ran right past him and they attacked the Ops, and he's still standing there. And he had a brief face-off with Jon Moxley. Joe recovered, though. He sank in a coquina clutch on the AEW World Champion. I think Master P, he got in a few shots. He was laughing and having a good time. And he was ordering, Joe to put Moxley to sleep, which he did. He put him down with the sleeper. Here come the Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada. They hit the ring with chairs. They save Moxley. And Master P at this point disappears. I don't know where he went, but he dipped out, and we did not see him again or hear from him again for the rest of the night. So thanks for coming, Master P. Moxley stumbled to his feet, and he briefly came face to face with the Bucks. Didn't even have time to react before Marina Shafir came over and quickly pulled him out of the ring and said, let's get out of here. So she pulled him out to the floor. Swerve Strickland's music hits. He walks out from the crowd. He had a chain around his neck. Joe recovers, and Swerve hits the ring. The Elite, they bail. So they bail up the aisle. Now Kenny Omega's music hits. And so the Elite scurry away through the crowd. So Omega, Strickland, and the Ops, they stood tall. And Excalibur talked about how Team AEW, they have to display a united front. Joe grabbed the mic. He said he's going to beat Moxley's ass and choke him out. And he is taking back his AEW World title. And when he said that, he stared at Swerve, who, of course, is the man who beat him to win the AEW Championship last year. They stuffed a lot into a short period of time here in this opening segment, and this is the second time now in as many weeks that Joe has put the AEW World Champion down with the Coquina Clutch. And it sets the battle lines, putting them aside for a second, it sets the battle lines here with all the appearances we had in this segment for Anarchy in the Arena and/or Blood and Guts. When you take a look at who was out there here in this closing segment, you had Joe, you had Shibata, you had Hobbs, you had Swerve, you had Kenny Omega. And obviously there's going to be some 5-on-5, I would imagine. There's going to be some formation involving them and the Death Riders with the Young Bucks. Now, whether or not Okada joins in and it's the Elite with Claudio and Yuta, and Moxley is defending his title against someone else, because the Moxley title defense has been announced, as I said, for May 14th. They're doing that on TV. So Moxley then would be able to be a part of an Anarchy in the Arena match if they were doing something like that at the pay-per-view. I would think you would want to have Okada in there, though, because when I look at it, you have Moxley, Claudio, Yuta, and the Bucks. That's 5. But you got Kenny Omega on the babyface side, assuming he would be part of this. So you would have to have Omega in there. So it'll be some amalgamation of these two teams. They always do Anarchy in the Arena at Double or Nothing. I would imagine we're getting another one this year. I've never been a fan of doing that so close, or doing that and Blood and Guts so close together. I think Blood and Guts last year was in late July. So that's fine. It feels like it's been earlier sometimes in the past. If you're going to do both matches, you got to put a little bit of distance between them. You know, I wouldn't want to see them go from Anarchy in the Arena on May 25th to Blood and Guts, 3 weeks later. I just think that's stupid. If they wanted to do it after All In and do it later, in July or, early August or something, then that's fine. But it's coming. It's coming. And now, the battle lines have been drawn. And we'll see who ends up on which team. But that was the opening segment here. So then we go to the back, and we had Renee Paquette with the Patriarchy, congratulating Nick Wayne on winning the Ring of Honor Television Championship, which he had draped over his shoulder. She mentioned that he became the youngest champion in the history of the company, I think in all of AEW, not just Ring of Honor. Christian Cage then reaches over and he snatches the ROH TV title away from him, and he places it on his own shoulder and says that he should be, or she should be, congratulating him because he's the one responsible for what Nick has become. And he told Nick Wayne that him and Mother Wayne celebrated extensively later that night. And I'm like, oh my God. This fucking guy. So Christian said, you see what happens when you shut your mouth and you listen to me. Good things happen. I always tell the truth. Nick said what happens when you stick to the plan is that you actually win championships. And he forcefully went to go grab his belt back, and Christian resisted and he held on to it a little bit. But then he thought about it, and he took the title and he placed it back on Nick's shoulder. Maybe he had a little bit of respect for him, talking back to him there. And then he said, I love my family. First match of the night, Ricochet, one-on-one with Mark Briscoe. Before the match, Taz, who was back on commentary this week, gave us a very brief update on Hook. Said that he is back in New York recovering, and when the time is right, he'll be back and do what he has to do. I wonder what that means. Is he going to be upset at being replaced so easily and so swiftly by the Ops? Is that going to play a role in the finish, perhaps, of the Joe and Moxley match on May 14th? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. Who wouldn't celebrate with Mother Wayne, says Duff's Vids. I don't disagree. So Ricochet and Mark Briscoe. Lots of stalling from Ricochet here in the early going. He took control, though, heading into the commercial, but he took too long mocking the crowd, which allowed Briscoe to fight back with a flying forearm. Ricochet blocked a bulldog, but Briscoe put on the brakes and slapped him on his bald head. They traded a series of pin attempts until Ricochet hit a Northern Lights into a brainbuster for a close 2 count. Briscoe wanted a J Driller, settled for a rolling Death Valley driver. Ricochet avoided a froggy bow, hung up Briscoe on the ropes, and then hit a springboard 450 splash for a near fall. Briscoe knocked Ricochet out to the floor. And then he hit a tope out over the top. Back inside, though, Ricochet again avoided a J Driller. He tried to steal a pin with his feet on the ropes, but Briscoe rolled through, and he got the flash pin. And Mark Briscoe actually wins this match here. Now, as Briscoe is celebrating his win, Ricochet cracks him in the ribs and the back with a chair. Then he pulled out the golden scissors that he busted Swerve Strickland open with a few months ago. And he tried to use them until Kevin Knight sprinted out to the ring. Ricochet tried to attack him in the aisle before he could even get to the ring, but Knight nailed him with a right hand. He knocked the scissors out of his hand, and so Ricochet quickly left. And then Knight helped Briscoe as they showed the Rock and Roll Express. They cut to the Rock and Roll Express, who were in the crowd applauding. Angle alert! Angle alert. As soon as they showed these two old men sitting in the crowd, I said, uh-oh. This is not going to end well for them. It did not end well the last time we saw them. Probably is not going to end well for them tonight either. I was surprised to see Mark Briscoe actually win a match. You know, he wins every now and then, but it's not like he's got this sterling win-loss record on Dynamite when he appears on the show. So that surprised me. But honestly, of the two, he needed this win more. Because again, he does not win a whole hell of a lot. At least not on this show. But they also set up Ricochet against Kevin Knight in doing what they did here. You know, since Ricochet lost that embassy robe to Swerve at Dynasty, they haven't, it's been a few weeks, but there was really no sense of what the direction was going to be with him. And so now this is the first time they've really set something up solid for him. And I think it'll be a good thing for Kevin Knight, who's still very new, to have him in there working with Ricochet. It's not a bad person for, you know, Kevin Knight to be working with. But I mentioned the Rock and Roll Express. That takes us into the next segment. Is Kevin Knight related to LA? Yeah, I mean, they look exactly alike. They look exactly the same. They could be twins. So FTR was back from their 1-week suspension, which I'm sure taught them a very valuable lesson, never to do that again. Tony Schiavone was in the ring. He was about to introduce Dax and Cash when he was cut off by the returning Stokely Hathaway. Stokely Hathaway is back. And he introduced the two as the most decorated tag team in all of wrestling. Hathaway made his way to the ring with them, said that he was going to address the elephant in the room. FTR was suspended for accidentally hitting someone and touching Tony Schiavone, he said. Really? He said Darby Allin has lit people on fire. Hangman Page has committed arson. Ricochet has shanked people with scissors. And Jon Moxley has committed acts of terrorism, kidnapping, extortion, and continues walking around AEW unpunished. Yeah, Tony, how about that? I thought you had a disciplinary committee. The man has a point. Hathaway told FTR not to worry. That's why I'm here. He says he's going to have their suspension expunged from their permanent record. And if you want to have a conversation with FTR from now on, you need to have one with me, because I am now the agent for the greatest team alive today. Demolition is still alive, by the way. I'm just saying. By the way, as soon as I saw Stokely, it reminded me, like, whatever happened to him trying to recruit Private Party? It didn't really go anywhere, and they never went back to it. I might be the only one wondering about that, but that was something that occurred to me as I saw him back here on my TV screen. So Stokely ordered Schiavone to do his job, and he reluctantly pointed the microphone to Cash Wheeler so that he could speak, and Wheeler thanked Hathaway for what he's doing for them. He said last week Daniel Garcia made his own decision, and he was responsible for what happened. It was 2.0, he said, which is Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. It was 2.0 who wanted to fight, and they weren't ready to fight FTR. Out of respect to Garcia, he asked them to stop beating up 2.0, and they did. FTR put Garcia and the TNT title first. They put them before themselves, just like they did with Adam Copeland. And it got them nothing. So no more. The fans booed, and he said, the fans are going to boo us for that? said the fans are the heels. Harwood said they have a couple of legends in the house tonight. I said, here we go. Here we go. Pointed out Ricky and Robert sitting in the crowd. He invited them to get into the ring. Robert looked like he had no idea what was going on. Ricky's like, come on, let's go in the ring. So, and I got to say, respect to Robert Gibson, still rocking the fanny pack after all these years. Harwood asked them what their greatest match ever was, and Ricky went to answer. He quickly got cut off, though, as Dax was more interested in saying that the Midnight Express, in his opinion, was better than the Rock and Roll Express. Harwood asked Morton, how old are you? And he went to go answer, and again, cut him off, saying, you look like you're 100 years old. Harwood asked another question. This time, Morton wasn't standing for it, and he took the microphone back. But Hathaway then said, look, I have a gift for you, and he presented them with a brand new FTR shirt. And I think it said something about Legend Killer on there or something like that. But he presented them with an FTR shirt and threw it in Morton's face. And then FTR quickly pounced on the two of them. Gibson got laid out first because he never does much. He doesn't really, I never really see him, in these types of segments bumping around much. It's always Ricky Morton. Like even a few years ago in the Rock and Roll Express, they were still going around and wrestling, fairly frequently. We even had them in House of Glory for a match. I got to call a Rock and Roll Express match. I mean, how fucking wild is that? But Ricky Morton is the one who was doing Canadian Destroyers. Like, it was going viral. It was all over the place. And he was in his early 60s. And Ricky now is 68 years old. And so what does FTR do here? They set Ricky Morton, 68-year-old Ricky Morton, up for a spike pile driver in the middle of the ring. And at that point, after he's laid out and crippled, then the Paragons music hits. Here comes Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly. They hit the ring for the save. FTR bails. It's too bad they were just standing around in the back, I guess, just waiting for their music to hit. And they were not able to come out and stop Ricky Morton from getting his neck broken in the middle of the ring. Guess they couldn't be bothered. Made the save a little too late. But that's what they're calling the Undisputed Kingdom now. The Paragon. I'm completely indifferent towards the name. I'm completely indifferent towards the entire group, to be honest with you. But it's not an upgrade. It's not a downgrade. It's just a different name. It doesn't really matter. It's interesting to think back a few months ago, and we had FTR coming to the rescue of the Rock and Roll Express when they were kidnapped. The kidnapping that Stokely Hathaway mentioned, they were kidnapped by Jon Moxley and the Death Riders, had their mouths taped shut, and FTR had to come to their rescue with Adam Copeland. And FTR is talking about, the greatest tag team of all time, but now they're heels. So now it's like, no, we think the Midnight Express is the greatest tag team of all time, and they're giving this guy a spike pile driver. It's amazing how quickly the tide turns here in this company. But anyway, I'll tell you what I'm glad, though, to see. All this other stuff is what it is, but Stokely Hathaway has been missing now for several months. I like Stokely, and I think Stokely is fun to watch. I think he's a good manager, and he could be a great mouthpiece for someone or even a group of people. So I'm happy to see him back on TV. This is not the partnership I was expecting. I was not expecting him to be paired off with FTR, but I dig it. I like it. I think it could work. And it makes me think even more, possibly as early as Double or Nothing, that FTR are going to take those tag team titles from the Hurt Syndicate. And so when FTR wrestles Copeland and Christian, who I have no doubt are going to be reunited by the time we get to Texas in July, it could be for the tag team titles. I think they might get those titles onto FTR first, and when they do that match, have it be for the championships. Why does the Hurt Syndicate lose to FTR? Well, not just because now they have a new manager and they're getting a renewed push as heels, but because MJF plays a role in things. We all have to know and expect that things are not going to end well with MJF and the Hurt Syndicate. And so as long as Bobby Lashley continues to torment MJF, and in the end, if he still gives him the big thumbs down, or if he gives him a thumbs up, and MJF finally gets what everybody thinks he wants, only for him to fuck the Hurt Syndicate over anyway, for making him look like an idiot every week, that's what leads to them losing the tag team titles. So FTR getting this this new agent makes me think that's where we're headed. And we'll get to MJF a little bit later. With Speedball Mike Bailey teaming up with Kevin Knight against the Young Bucks. This was the Bucks' first match in an AEW ring in many months. This was also the Spot Fest match of the night. Crowd got super into it here as it went on. Everybody ended up outside late in the match where the Bucks landed a doomsday device from the barricade to the floor. Mike Bailey tried to moonsault them both, but he got caught out of midair on the moonsault, and they put him down on the floor outside with a Meltzer driver. You had Nick Jackson running the barricade before making the leap to complete the move. And then we got an Uncle Dave remark on commentary. I want to say it was Ian Riccaboni who is on commentary tonight with Excalibur and Taz. I think it was him. And, you know, he says Uncle Dave, and then Taz is like, who's Uncle Dave? And I'm just sitting here. I'm like, it's so cringy. Like, whenever Meltzer gets mentioned on this show, and they've mentioned him. They've Meltzered him. They've mentioned him a lot, like, over the years. I cringe every single time. So, yeah, they were talking about Uncle Dave here during this match. Kevin Knight tried to take on both members of the Bucks by himself since Bailey just got laid out, and he managed to land a double DDT. And the fans were really into his offense. They were behind this guy. He set up for a springboard, but Ricochet shows up, and Ricochet interferes to trip him up. This led to a BTE trigger, and the Young Bucks covered Kevin Knight for the win. I thought the Bucks gave him a lot here. It was a very competitive match. Not only gave a lot to Kevin Knight, but Mike Bailey as well. Fans were super into it. I thought it was a fun match. Ricochet certainly didn't waste any time getting his revenge on Kevin Knight for what happened a few segments earlier. And we'll see them in the ring very soon, whether or not that's going to be an extended program where we get multiple matches out of it, or if it's just going to be kind of a one and done on TV. I would imagine they might try to get a few out of this. Ricochet needs something to do. He needs a new direction. I'm not talking just a match. I mean a story or a direction of some kind. This is fine for now. I just don't know, what we're looking at here as far as, is this going to lead into something else they have in mind for him, or is this the story they have for him for the time being? That I don't know. But we go backstage after this, and Toni Storm is back there with Luther, and she is being interviewed by Renee Paquette. And they plugged her appearance at the TCM Film Festival this weekend for, I believe they said, The Empire Strikes Back. Is that correct? Okay. So Renee asked her about Kris Statlander against Jamie Hayter in the main event tonight. The winner of that match going to the finals. The winner of the finals will challenge Toni in Texas for the world title. And Toni said, actually, she told them to rip their tits off if they must. But you're watching the feature presentation, that being her. Queen Aminata showed up and accepted Toni's challenge. She threw out a challenge to an eliminator match on Collision this Saturday. And instantly, Queen Aminata shows up. And so just like that, we have a match. And then Luther carried Toni off. And that was it. Now, I mentioned MJF. And I mentioned the Hurt Syndicate. And that takes us into the next segment here, which was MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin making their way out to the ring to hurt people. No, actually, they were just coming out to talk. MVP told the crowd this is an official announcement from the Hurt Syndicate on behalf of Shelton and Bobby. They're so good at hurting people that every single team they've beaten, we have not seen them since. And he said the gates of agony, they won't be seen in the near future after being hurt by them, but they have a bright future, just not now. Said now is not their time. So MVP hands the mic over to Lashley, and Lashley is about to speak, but he gets cut off. Because on the big screen, they cut to the arrival outside of MJF, who pulls up to the arena in a Corvette. And he makes his way out to the ring, and he says, we all know they had a good time last week, and if they want to have a good time for the rest of their lives, all he needs is 3 thumbs up. He gets 3 thumbs up from these guys. He's in, and they run the company. That's basically what he's saying here. So MVP gives a thumbs up. He's all in on the idea of MJF joining this group. Shelton Benjamin teases it a little bit, and then ultimately he gives the thumbs up, and everybody cheers. And MVP is happy, and MJF is happy. But he holds MJF back from hugging him when he goes in for a hug, and Benjamin says, "I didn't give you a thumbs up for a bunch of broads and a watch. I did it for him." He's talking about MVP. He says, "Don't forget that." And MJF said, "Look, we all love Montel, just like we love our friend Bob." And MJF told Lashley if he's in the syndicate, they'll have all the gold in the world. But the fact is, he brings some things to the table that Lashley doesn't. And he knows this place more than anybody. He cuts corners better than anybody. You can hear Taz on commentary say that's a shoot. And if they let MJF into the Hurt Syndicate, they won't just run AEW, they will run all of professional wrestling. So MJF says, "Look, I know that I've been a little prickly towards Bob in recent weeks, but I'm going to tell you two words that I've never said before." And he really had a fight to get the words out, but finally he says the words, "I'm sorry." And right as Lashley was about to give probably his thumbs down, MJF stopped him and said, "Look, you know that car that I just drove into the arena that's parked out back? If I get a thumbs up, it's yours." So Lashley asked to see the keys, and MJF said they're in the back. So let's go. Let's go take a walk. And they all leave the ring and they head to the back. So we go backstage. MJF hands the car keys to Lashley as Lashley and Benjamin, they climb inside. And MJF said, "All I need is a thumbs up." And Lashley starts to drive off and he stops and he holds his arm out and he gives him a thumbs down. And then with Shelton in the passenger seat, he speeds off. And MVP has to calm down MJF, who's beside himself, and he's reminding him, "Gotta give the people what they want." MJF grits his teeth and says, "I hope Bob enjoys the car." So they're really milking this thing. It is amusing watching Lashley make this guy sweat every single week, which is why I think in the end, even if this all builds to Bobby Lashley finally relenting and saying, "You know what? Let's give it a shot." And he gives him the thumbs up and everybody cheers and it looks like MJF is in the Hurt Syndicate. It's why I think if that happens, MJF is going to fuck him over anyway. Because how many more weeks of this? I mean, think about it. MJF, we know what character he plays when he's on TV. He's this slimy scumbag. He's always been that way. And you can have the baby faces make him look stupid, when he's a heel. That's fine and all. But how many more weeks of this before it makes him look so desperate that it's just beyond ludicrous, right? He already looks desperate as it is, trying to join this group for reasons that are just unexplained here, other than just he wants people to watch his back for him. But how many more weeks of this before we need a decision rendered? And it just gets to the point where it's like, okay, this is just completely ridiculous now. So they could probably milk it out for another week or two. And then they're going to have to, bite the bullet and give us something here. But that's what I'm wondering. If in the end, Lashley says yes, and MJF helps fuck them out of the titles, and that's how you get them on FTR. That's how I'm kind of viewing the situation here.
Mentos, the fresh maker.
If you are in the mood for a Mentos, you are in luck because David Thiering just dropped a $30 Mentos super chat on us. It's always a good time for a Mentos. It is the fresh maker indeed. David, thank you. Have a great time, he says, in Chicago. You definitely deserve it after the WrestleMania weekend TNT coverage. Make sure to pack plenty of Mentos, the fresh maker, with you. I will do that. I have one laying around here somewhere, so I will be sure to do that. David, thank you. David was with me all weekend in the chat, showing support. I appreciate you, brother. Renee was backstage yet again. This time she was with Hangman Adam Page. And he screamed that the minute he sees Kyle Fletcher, he is putting his ass down. MJF strolls into the camera shot. And he says that Hangman's new haircut looks like he met his wife at a family reunion. Can I just say that Hangman's shorter haircut, it's a tragedy, is what it is. I don't know what he was thinking. I really don't. Tragedy is the word that comes to mind. So Page says, unless MJF has something of substance to add, he ought to go and get back in his car. And he said, oh, wait. And MJF says, oh, look, it's the joke man, Adam Page. He said, it's funny, this guy enters the Owen Hart tournament, but someone like him just strolls in through the back door thanks to the Hurt Syndicate to become a 2-time world champion. And Page said that MJF doesn't know anything about the back door. And MJF couldn't hang with him in the ring, and he couldn't hang in the Owen. And MJF called Page an idiot who acts high and mighty that he beat him, but he reminds Hangman that we're 1-1. And if that day comes that you and I fight again, I'm going to send you to the glue factory. And if Page makes it to the finals of the Owen, he's going to do what he does best. He's going to choke. MJF leaves, and Hangman screams that he's got something for MJF to choke on. And I'm like, wow. All right then. It's quite the ending here to this segment. But they tease one more match here with MJF and Hangman. I didn't get the sense that we're getting it anytime soon. Like, this is a match. This is a match that I don't know that we are going to see for many more months, potentially. I just didn't get the sense that this is something they're planning for in the next, couple of months, like between now and Texas. But it's out there. It will happen at some point. They will revisit it when the time is right. But they're just going in two totally different directions right now. MJF is doing whatever the hell it is that he's doing with the Hurt Syndicate. Hangman is likely going to end up, tied up in the Death Rider stuff or tagging with Swerve against the Bucks. I could see that being the all-in match. But yeah, this they have to get back to at some point. You got to revisit this. I mean, how can you not? We had Will Ospreay and Brody King taking on Konosuke Takeshita and the newest addition to the Don Callis family, Josh Alexander, who made his AEW debut on Dynamite last week. He was the wild card against Hangman Page. We had Lance Archer standing ringside in the corner of the Callis family. Don Callis himself was on commentary for this match. I should mention this here, by the way. We have Konosuke Takeshita making his House of Glory debut this Friday. Whenever this happens, and it's the week of, and I see that this person is in action on Dynamite, I hold my breath to make sure that nobody gets hurt. But he made it through fine, and Takeshita is going to be wrestling Mike Santana this Friday night, and that is going to be a hell of a battle. Takeshita and Alexander, they took control in the early going. They isolated Ospreay. Ospreay fired back with a head scissors and an arm drag. Brody King tagged in. He took down both Alexander and Takeshita with a running senton. Ospreay tagged back in. He attempted a springboard, but got Takeshita avoiding the move. And then Ospreay got knocked to the floor by Alexander. So Ospreay battled to break free from Alexander. He made a tag to Brody King. Takeshita tagged in. And Ospreay managed to take down both heels with a flip kick. He then tagged in Brody, who landed a big lariat on Takeshita. King took the action outside. He sandwiched the two heels up against the barricade with a running charge. Late in the match, Archer jumped up on the apron to distract Brody King. Ospreay dove out of the ring onto Archer on the floor. Alexander put Ospreay down with a powerbomb, and then Takeshita landed a running lariat on Brody King. Alexander and Takeshita, they hit rolling elbows on King simultaneously, and Alexander followed that up with a C4 spike, and he covers him for the win for the Callis family. After the match was over, the attack on King continued. Ospreay tried to get back in to defend his partner, but he got put down with a chokeslam from Lance Archer. And we hear music, and here comes Kyle Fletcher, who, of course, is wrestling in the semifinals next week in the Owen Hart tournament, trying to go to the finals. He walks out to the ring and he's applauding his teammates. And they wanted to continue the assault on Ospreay, but Hangman Page makes his way out. He never makes it to the ring, though, before he gets ambushed by Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero. So they jump him, and then they put him in the ring. And the numbers game 1 out. Fletcher ends up putting down Hangman with a brain buster. It is feeling, I mean, it was kind of feeling like this anyway, but especially after what they did tonight, it's feeling like a Hangman Ospreay final, which is the best way to go. First of all, it's a much bigger match. Second of all, it's a much more unpredictable match because you can make the argument that either of those men will challenge for the world championship in Texas. I still feel like it's Ospreay's tournament to lose. You know, I mean, I know it's Texas. It's the cowboy comes to Texas, you know, to try to win the championship. You have that story that you could tell. I still feel like it's Ospreay's to lose. I would not mind if either of these men won. I don't care who wins. I want to see that match in the finals, and I would love to see either of these men be the one to take that title away from Jon Moxley. I would like to see anybody take that title away from Jon Moxley. We got Justin and Tawab in the chat right now, and Sarah, and we got fucking Master P was on Dynamite tonight. I would be fine with Master P taking the championship from Jon Moxley. But either of them works fine. So that's going to be the finals of the tournament. I thought maybe there was a chance they would want to run back Ospreay and Fletcher again, but I just don't see the point. To do what? To have Fletcher lose to him again back to back? Why? Doesn't serve any purpose. As far as the Callis family, they had to win this. You could not have Josh Alexander go in there the second week in a row on Dynamite. He just debuted last week, and he lost, and it's fine, whatever. He joined the Callis family after, which I liked. But to send him back out there on Dynamite the following week to lose again would have been a terrible decision. And I know he wrestled. Him and Takeshita, I think, had a tag match on Collision, and they won. But I'm talking Dynamite here. He could not come out for a second week in a row and lose. And he won the match himself with the C4 spike. So that was the right decision. They are adding new people to the Callis family. So very important to keep them strong, keep them winning. So I have no problem with anything they did here in that regard, even though I think adding people like Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero is just going to water the group down. I don't see how that benefits the Callis family. Maybe there's a loose association there, a couple of hired guns, but no, you're going to add them to the Callis family. It's like, you're just watering the group down now. It's unnecessary. Brody King, he was the odd man out. He had to eat the pin. Ospreay's going to the finals of the Owen. He probably was winning the entire thing. The hell are you going to beat him for? Brody King was in there for one reason and one reason only. And then we had our main event. It was Jamie Hayter and Kris Statlander semi-final round match in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. Winner goes on to wrestle Mercedes Moné in the finals. Both women tried to showcase their power early. They collided with a double shoulder tackle. Neither woman budged. They traded strikes. Nobody really had a clear advantage. Hayter struck the first blow with a German suplex. She then landed a drop kick off the middle rope for a 2 count. They traded reversals in the corner. Hayter got sent into the middle turnbuckle face first. So the action spilled out to the apron. Hayter got tripped to the floor, and Statlander then attempted a moonsault off the apron, and instead she just crashed and burned. So after one last commercial break, the two of them traded submission holds. Statlander managed to power her way up to her feet, slammed Hayter face first into the mat. She followed up with a double knees to the back. Both women traded some rapid-fire pin attempts. Statlander managed to land a power bomb but did not go for the cover. Hayter fired back with a hate breaker, but was too fatigued to cover Kris. So Hayter lined her up for a ripcord lariat. Statlander shot back with a power bomb. She headed up top, and she landed a 450. Not the best 450, but she hit the 450. Hayter kicked out. Statlander went back to the top. Hayter, though, cut her off and set up for a super kick, or a superplex. Thought I was still talking about the Young Bucks match here. Hayter then put Statlander down with one big lariat, but then a proper Haterade. Put down Kris Statlander for good. Jamie Hayter wins the match. She is going to the finals of the Owen Hart Cup. She's celebrating. Her celebration is cut short when we hear the music for the CEO. And Mercedes Moné struts out onto the stage right next to the Owen Hart Foundation trophy. And she posed and she did her CEO dance. Hayter tried to convince her to come to the ring. Moné didn't bite. They clearly had a hard out tonight because they hit 10 p.m. and that was it. They were off the air. So there was no overrun for the show tonight, which was fine. I have no problem with that. This was a good, hard-hitting main event between these two women, two of the very best in the entire women's division, two of my favorites in the entire women's division in AEW. And it's, you know what? It's nice to see Jamie Hayter finally starting to gain some of that steam back. She's not where she was before the injury and all that time off. She's not back there yet, but it's nice to see her in the mix in the main event and starting to gain some of that steam back that she lost for all those many months that she was gone. And she's too good to be just sitting in the, kind of in the back of the line, doing not much of anything, which is what she's been doing now for many months. I mean, they've been slowly doing things with her here and there. But I want to see her back in the mix. This is where she belongs. So she's going to the final. She's going to wrestle Mercedes. Mercedes and Kris Statlander Part 3 would have been nice. It also would have been a third straight loss for Kris Statlander, which would have been stupid. So you don't really want to do that match. Mercedes against Jamie, it's a fresh match. Never been done before. And it's a good attraction, I think, for Double or Nothing. But as we sit here now, and the finals are set, and I look at the lay of the land and what they've done, I really thought that there was a greater plan for Mercedes and Athena. I really did. I really thought there was a plan there. I really thought, and when I say plan, I mean a plan to do a multi-match series that would culminate in something in Texas. Is there still a chance? I mean, there's a chance, but it sure as hell doesn't look like that's the plan right now. And that's disappointing. Now, again, there is still time, and maybe Athena will be involved in this in some way, and somehow it'll lead to a Mercedes loss. I really don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. Athena was not mentioned or seen at all on the show tonight. She's just not in the mix at this point, it feels like. And it really does feel like Mercedes is going all the way to All In. And they're going to do champion against champion, and it's going to be Mercedes holding all the belts. That's what it feels like right now. And it's too bad, because I have no desire to see her holding any more belts. She's got enough belts as it is. She's got enough belts as it is. She's got more belts than I have in my closet right now. She doesn't need any more. But it looks like that's where we're headed here. I would love to see Jamie win at the pay-per-view. When you really think about it, though, if Jamie beats her, and I've said this before, if Jamie beats her, if she's the first woman to hand Mercedes a defeat here in AEW, right? She's held that TBS championship for going on a year now. What sense does it make for her to then go wrestle Tony for the title when she just got this huge win over the TBS champion, and it's right there? Like, why wouldn't you do Jamie and Mercedes for the TBS championship? So I really don't think that they're going to want to do that they're going to want to beat this woman. I think they're going to want to continue to, push her to the moon over everybody else, make her that much stronger, feed her more wins, feed her more challengers and successful title defenses. And then eventually the person who finally does beat her is going to beat her for the title. Jamie Hayter handing Mercedes her first loss in over a year in AEW and then going on to wrestle somebody else would be pretty stupid when you really stop and think about it. So that's why I say it really does, like, reality is setting in now, and it's like, okay, we could pretty much see what's going on here and where this is going, and I'm not really that enamored with that. But the first match she loses, she should lose that TBS title, and that's not going to be in the Owen Hart tournament. On the whole, I thought it was a good show. It was nowhere near as fun as last week's show. But for me, the show breezed by. We have 3 really good matches, right? The 2 tag matches in the main event. and a few angles tucked in between. We had the announcement of Joe and Moxley for the AEW World title. We know when that's going to be taking place now, and we all know Joe isn't winning. But anytime I see Samoa Joe on my TV, and he either has a championship or he's challenging for a championship, I have no issue with that whatsoever. So I enjoyed it, just not nearly as much as last week. What did you think of Dynamite for April 23rd? 33% thumbs up, 22.7% thumbs in the middle, and 44.5% thumbs down. That is per the poll on X. And there you go. The show breezed by, and so did the review. It was a pretty cut and dry show. Let's get to your super chats here. Cap off what has been a whirlwind of a week, a very busy week, going back to last Wednesday. I am ready to collapse. I'm not gonna lie. All right, let's start with who are we starting with here? GMB wants to know when Braun and Oba happens. Are we sure no one will die? No, we're not. We're actually not sure. I think the world might implode when that match eventually happens. Hey, Johnny Burney says, I'm convinced Monet beats Tony at All In. Bad idea. You know, if you would have said that a month or two ago, I would have said, nah, I think you're overreacting. I'm not going to say that now. Joseph Stewart with the $9.99. Thank you, Joseph. Says, rest in peace, Steve Mongo McMichael. One of my favorite Nitro moments was when the Four Horsemen reunited with the return of Ric Flair. Mongo was part of that. Yes, Mongo was part of some moments, back in the Nitro days. For sure. U.S. champion. He was very funny too. Even during his promos were very outlandish. They could be, but he was very entertaining. Joseph says, were you a fan of the NWO Wolfpack theme song? Yes, I was. And during WrestleCon this weekend, there was an NWO Wolfpack reunion with Sting, Lex Luger, and Kevin Nash. Every time I see Sting now in one of these photos, his goatee gets bigger. Because he's got a big bushy goatee now. And he puts his face paint on, and he puts the face paint on over the goatee. But every time I see him now, it gets bigger and bigger. Joseph says, do you have a favorite Steve Mongo McMichael moment in WCW? Not really. Like a singular moment? No. There's no singular match or moment. I used to get a kick out of whenever he would come out and cut a promo. He would always put over the Chicago Bears. They were the best team. Didn't matter if he was a heel or a babyface. Wherever he was, he would always say the same thing. Rojo Bear says, never mind that shit. Here comes Mongo. Mr. Rod unfortunately had to work late tonight, but thanks as always. That being said, rest in peace, Mongo McMichael. Yeah, still, he was very young. He's only 67. Jonathan Black with the $10 super chat. Why do they call it a hot dog? Because it was considered too offensive to call it the sexy bitch. If Fred Ottman portrayed a character addicted to brain rot, his name would be Tugboat Goes... What is that saying? Binted? Tugboat Goes Binted? I don't get it. The hot dog one I get. I don't get that though. Jonathan, thank you. Richie says, did you know that The Rock deactivated his Instagram account after WrestleMania? I did not know that, but boy, it was sure very interesting how we didn't even get the announcement about him being on the Pat McAfee show until like last minute. All of a sudden, The Rock is going to be on there. It's almost like, shit, I better get on there and try to cool things down. The Mount Vernon kid, Christopher Bennett. Am I the only one that is not really feeling this MJF plot? It just feels so desperate, trying to get in with the brothers. One more thing, how would you rate the current Don Callis family? I think Takeshita is great. I think Kyle Fletcher is great. Star on the rise. Beyond, and I think Don Callis is his great slimy heel manager. Josh Alexander just joined, so we'll see how he gels with the rest of the group. Everybody else, I could just take it or leave it. I said Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta either being in the group or being associated with the group. I don't care for that. Lance Archer is there. He stands there. He's obviously very big and imposing, but he always loses and gets his ass kicked, so it's like, who cares? Mark Davis it felt like Mark Davis was starting to kind of find his role and find his footing until he broke his foot. And now he's out. The Callis family to me is really, it's Takeshita and Fletcher. That's it. Those are the keys right there to the Callis family. But I think as time goes on, Josh Alexander will show what he can do, and he'll find his role within the group as well. David Theory, thank you again for that $30 super chat earlier that I read. Love you, brother. Jake says, F Rock. Made me not be able to watch more tonight. Made me not able to watch more tonight. Why would Rock make you not be able to watch Dynamite tonight? I don't understand that. Pisco95 says, off topic to AEW. But man, Rock is truly the new Hogan with how much full of shit he is. It makes Cody turning heel somehow less appealing to me just because of how desperately Rock wants it to happen. You have to admit, it is sus. I have a theory about that, which is that Rock wants Cody to go heel. He still wants that fucking match with Roman Reigns that he was deprived of getting last year. Because of all the Cody crybabies, as he would say. And he so desperately wants Cody to go heel, because Cody's going to get the belt back at some point, and he so desperately wants him to go heel so that he can beat him for the belt, and then he could lose the belt to Roman. Just a theory. Jake says AEW's bookings seem to be written by The Rock. Eminem, you should check the 2 Count Wrestling and listen to the reimagined WWE themes. It's awesome. Def Rebel doesn't got anything on 2 Count. Is that a YouTube channel? I will have to check that out. Food Hive says Mr. P. It's funny, I was hired as the commissioner of House of Glory by Mr. P. Well, that's funny. EJ Slim, how do you think a 3.5-year title reign for Brett from the fall of '92 to WrestleMania 12 would have been for him and WWE? I think that would have been bad for business. And I'm a Brett fan. I think that would have been bad for business. There was a reason the title got bounced around a bunch of times during that period, because business was just not, and it's not just Brett, just business was just shit back then during that period for both companies. And putting the title on Brett for 3 or 4 years, that would have been, I think, a bad idea. And EJ says, my dad and I went to Mongo's benefit a few years ago, and Flair was rumored to be there. He wasn't, but it was still a great benefit. Rest in peace to the Bears legend. Yes, indeed. Mongo was one of a kind. Yes, he was. Ron says grammar is bad today. Yeah, some of the super chats I have to read them twice to just make sure I'm reading them the right way. Well, again, it was an easy watch tonight, the show. So there wasn't a whole lot else to really discuss about it. And it's been a quiet night. We fell short of our goal tonight. I was hoping to get one last Be the Booker in before we head out, because the next time I'm live won't be until next Monday. It's going to be a while before we do Be the Booker again, but we fell short. We shall try again next time. But again, I want to thank all of you who have tuned in to all of the live streams and been with me for all the content over the last week. It's been a very busy week, but it is the busiest and the best week of the year for me, typically. And this was our biggest week yet, our biggest WrestleMania weekend yet. So I thank you all for that. And you guys are why I do what I do. And as long as you are here to join me and hang out and have fun and support, then we'll keep doing it, because that's what it's all about. If you missed it, episode 910 of The Sound Off went up a few days ago, but there's a lot of good stuff on there. So I recommend you go check that out. We got a full review up on the channel from last week of the WrestleMania 9 documentary. If somehow you missed it, that's up on the channel as well. And what else? What am I missing here? There's so much stuff going on. Right, HOG. I will not be at the HOG show on Friday because I am in Chicago, but I encourage you to either buy a ticket if you're in the area, or you can watch the show live on Triller TV Plus. You will hear some other voices, not mine. But it's going to be a great show. Takeshita will be there. He is wrestling Mike Santana. We got Masha Slamovich is going to be appearing on the show. Main event. My boys, Main Event, Midas Black and Jay Lyon, they will be there as well. Trevor Lee. There's a lot of good shit to be had on that show. HOG Isolation. Bell time 8 p.m. this Friday. Be sure to check it out. No SmackDown review Friday. No podcast this weekend. Episode 911 will be the following weekend. So just be aware. It's very rare I don't do a weekend podcast, but it's just unavoidable this week. So if there's any like big breaking news or anything like that, I'll probably throw something up on YouTube for you. Alex with a super chat, $5 says, Brother Solo, I want you to count from 1 to 1,000,000 very slowly. I'll be like Austin on WrestleMania Sunday when he started counting the people in the crowd. What did he get up to? Like 18, I think. And then he stopped. Boots says, I thought Master P was going to turn heel and low blow Samoa Joe. DTA standing behind you. Okay, so I wasn't the only one who felt that way. If for a minute there, I was kind of thinking the same thing. But then he left, and then we never saw him again. And Joseph Stewart, I have a prediction. Both Dominic Mysterio and Braun Breaker will be the next top 2 stars of WWE, like Austin and Rock and Brett and Shawn in the next generation. Well, I think the first thing is, let's not compare anybody to Austin and Rock, because that's just very unfair to them. But if you mean kind of like the 1A and 1B, like Cena, Batista, Braun, yes, I can see Braun Breaker being one of those people. Dominic, I think, is going to do well. Dominic one day could be a world heavyweight champion. Dom is not going to be that guy, though. It would be Braun Breaker and somebody else. Who that other person would be, I don't know. There's any number of great young guys that are coming up right now. Fucking Obafemi could be that guy. I don't see Dominic in that spot. But I think Dominic will do very well. Justin G, what do this longest possible super chat and a former general secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union have in common? I'm Stalin. I could tell. Pisco, there were rumors pre-WrestleMania that Drew would feud with Cody after Mania. Do you think that will truly happen? Could be interesting to keep them busy until Survivor Series. Or I guess that means SummerSlam. You ever notice that? Got the same initials. SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble is 2 R's. Yes, I could see that. One idea I actually talked about and pitched on TNT last night, and I don't know what the plan is for Cody. Cody, I think, is supposed to be on SmackDown this Friday. I think Cody and Cena are supposed to be there. If Cody is going to be kept out, it's not going to be for very long. He's going to be doing something. Cena obviously is going to be occupied with Randy Orton at Backlash. So what do you do with Cody? Drew beat Priest at WrestleMania. So they have to have something lined up for him coming out of that. Cody and Drew would make sense. And Drew beating Cody would make sense. Cody loses to Cena at WrestleMania, then he loses to Drew, and he starts having, he's been very successful over the past year. He was champion for a year. Now, all of a sudden, maybe he suffers a few demoralizing losses. Maybe he starts to have some self-doubt. He has to crawl himself out of a hole, dig himself out of a hole before he can get back to challenging Cena for the championship, which would be later in the summer. So Cody and Drew absolutely could be a program coming out of WrestleMania, and I think Drew should beat Cody. I do. Trick Williams looks like a can't-miss prospect. Trick will be up on the main roster soon. It feels like he's on his way up very soon. Retro says, do you think Austin Theory would be a good fit in AEW if things don't turn around soon? Yeah, I think that's where he would end up, without a doubt. I think they would snatch him up if he became available. There are some people who think that he should be part of the Paul Heyman faction, whatever they end up calling it, this new dangerous alliance, that could be what salvages his career. My issue with it is I think I'm just so used to seeing him in the role that he's in. This is part of the problem. When you kind of push someone down the card enough and you slot them at a certain level for so long, it can be hard to see them as doing anything else. So for him to go from what he's been doing to all of a sudden being in the top heel faction in the company, it would take some heavy lifting to get me to buy into that. But he has the tools to be a player. He just hasn't been able to put it together yet and hasn't had the opportunity to do that. It's a combination of the booking and just he himself. He's been a babyface. I guess technically when he was in the way, he might have still been a heel. But, he was kind of a babyface. But on the main roster, he's mostly been a heel. And, just personality-wise, I feel like he still hasn't fully developed in that way, where if they suddenly decided to give him a big push, is the personality and charisma aspect there? Has he shown enough of that to truly kind of advance and make it to that next level and to get that buy-in from the fans? With me, he hasn't. But maybe he just hasn't been given the opportunity yet. But there are some people who think that maybe he would be a good fit for that. And it would be him and Braun and Seth, led by Paul Heyman. I don't know. Food Hive, are you going to All In Texas? The whole Texas thing right now is TBD. Because HOG is doing a show in Texas the night before. And actually, All In is earlier in the day that Saturday. So if I do go to Texas for House of Glory, and I haven't confirmed anything yet, but if I do, it's going to be awfully hard for me not to just stay and either go to the show or just watch the show from like an Airbnb and just go live, immediately after in Texas. So I might. I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't decided yet. I'm sure it's not going to sell out. So even if it was kind of a last minute decision and I had to buy tickets, I'm sure I'd be able to buy a ticket if I had to. Pisco. Too bad there won't be a new episode this weekend. There was a lot of interesting stuff this week. I was hoping to hear you shitting on The Rock. Well, who knows? If I have some time tomorrow, maybe I'll try to get a video up. I was going to possibly try to do one today, and then the day just got away from me. We had quite the discussion about The Rock, among other things, though, on TNT last night. The Rock discussion was more towards the end. It was a very long show. We didn't mean to go that long, but there was so much going on. And then before you know it, we turned around and it was almost 5 hours. I'm like, holy shit. But it was the biggest episode we've done yet. I don't know what the view count is up to. It's got to be north of 60,000 at this point. We had over 5,000 people live, even at the end. It was a very heavy discussion, but we finally broke into the Rock stuff like towards the very end. But I'll see maybe tomorrow if I could try to get something, even just like a 10 or 15 minute video maybe. And I say video, you know, the audio up on the channel. Maybe I'll record something. Food Hive says, I'm bringing you food, my guy. If I come to Texas, we'll see. Well, look at that. We are now at 405 likes. It's funny how that happens. So we have not hit the secondary goal. That's not happening tonight, but we hit the first goal. So with that being said, let's be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
It is now time. Yes, it is. It is now time to be the booker. We get one round, and we have to try to make it count. So that is what we are going to do. We need a good one. It's got to be good. Well, sometimes we just don't get what we want. We begin with the best friends, Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor. Kicking us off in tag team, Be the Booker. Solo has turned TNT into a juggernaut, a real needle mover. That's right, Roman. I'm the needle mover now. Now we're killing it, man. Shows are blowing up every single week. You guys have been awesome. All right, so it's going to be best friends against the North. Former Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champions Josh Alexander and Ethan Page taking on best friends. You know what? I'm in a generous mood, and I like the North. I might open my show with this. That'll be the opening tag team title match. I could live with that. I think that's fine. All right, women's Be the Booker. We have Mia Yim, or Michin, whatever name you want to call her by. Mia Yim is here. And Mia Yim is going to take on Io Sky. Very easy. I see Io, I click. The Women's World Champion. I'm a simple man. One half of our main event is the bad guy, Razor Ramon, who had all the tools to be a world champion if they wanted to put the title on him at some point. So did Mr. Perfect. It just never happened. I have a good feeling I already belled it. And I fucked up. All right, so what happened is I actually hit the wrong button, and then I tried to save it by saying, you know what? I know it's going to be a good choice. I'm just going to hit the bell first, and then we landed on The Miz. And so let that be a lesson to all of you out there. Don't put the cart before the horse. When you do, you end up looking like an ass. I botched it, and then I booked a terrible main event. All right, you guys deserve better than that. We have to redo that. I'm sorry. We have to redo this match. I'm not ending with Razor Ramon against The Miz. I'm not doing that. I can't after the weekend that we had and all the support you guys have thrown my way. We can't end like that. We just can't end like that. You know what? Retro says Razor and Miz could have a good... Absolutely. Razor and Miz could have a really good match in the middle of Raw. We're booking a main event here, okay? Come on. We're booking a main event here. Oh, no. We have The Big Show. The Big Show. The Big Show against Psycho Sid. Just for Sid's promos, I'm giving it the winning bell. Sid's promos were awesome. Sid was awesome. I will not tolerate Sid slander here in my chat. And there you are. The Big Show and Psycho Sid is our main event. That's right. WrestleMania 36 main eventer. Well, he was in the main event of WrestleMania 16 too. 20 years later, he main evented another WrestleMania at the Performance Center. Since they taped that shit on the same night, technically it counts. Technically, he is a WrestleMania main eventer in 2020. Does that mean we get the Sonic sound? No Sonic sound, because that was a make good. We really didn't have a clean sweep. I mean, if we're being honest, I don't want to just prostitute the Sonic sweep. We have to save it for the occasions where it counts. Let's see here. Final super chat says, Alex. Yes, Alex, I mentioned Mongo before. And then Pisco. 95. Do you think ticket prices can affect the crowd? The crowd at WrestleMania was very weird. And a lot of people think it's because the more dedicated fans got outpriced by more casual, non-regular fans. Very possible. And I think that was also an issue at WrestleMania 9. And I think I even said this in my WrestleMania 9 documentary review, where I don't know what the percentage was. They had 16,000 people in the Caesars Palace parking lot for that show. Okay, here you had 50 or 60,000 people, whatever the real number was, probably 60. But it's Las Vegas, you know. It's a vacation destination. Families are there, and there's no doubt there is a percentage of the crowd that are not diehard, hardcore WWE fans. They're not watching the shows week to week. They probably know who the key people are, and they're there to root for the stars. So they're going to be rooting for John Cena, and they're going to be rooting for Rhea Ripley and people like that, Cody Rhodes, or whoever, Roman Reigns. So you will have people that, yes, are more dedicated, loyal, hardcore, diehard fans who know every detail about every wrestler and they follow every story. And then you just have people who are there because, hey, WrestleMania is coming to Las Vegas and we're on vacation and shit, let's go to WrestleMania. It could be fun. But what the percentage is, I don't know. I'm sure the majority of the people there watch WWE. But absolutely, you had people there who were just there for a good time. It's Vegas. It's what people do. When you're there, you're looking for things to do. You want to go to shows. You want to, hit the strip and see what different types of entertainment there are. I remember the last time I was in Vegas, I'm like, what do I want to do? It was like that one night, I'm like, what do I want to do? I don't want to just go to a show. So what do I want to, and I'm not going to get into what that was, but like you figure out what do you want to do? And then you do it. Especially if you don't gamble. If you don't want to just spend the night away at the casinos, what do you do? Sometimes there's so much to do that you can't find anything to do. You can't make up your mind. Maze the Great, with 46 months of channel membership, says, with how coked up wrestling was back then, if Solomonster existed back then, who do you think would have been the best and worst tweets? Oh, I thought you meant if Solomonster existed. I'm like, Solomonster did exist back then. He was a lot younger. SM, he said, social media. Okay. I thought you said if I existed back then. I'm like, I didn't know I didn't exist. Do I not exist to you? Oh my God, if social media existed back then, the best and worst tweets, they all would have been the best. Can you imagine like coked up Randy Savage on Twitter. Coked up, roided up fucking Road Warriors and Nasty Boys and all these people like raging on Twitter. It would be a complete shit show. I would be here for it. I would have so much content and material for my show. I would never run out of content. Every sound off would be 4 hours long. Just me talking about, Twitter posts and Twitter wars between different wrestlers who went on a fucking bender at 4 o'clock in the morning. It would be amazing. It would be the great. Thank you for the message. All right, I'm going to head out of here. Short and to the point. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. You're awesome. Be well. Stay safe. Have a great rest of your week. I will see you back here on this channel live next Monday for the Raw Post Show. Again, not here on Friday. I'll be here in spirit, but I will not be here on YouTube. Don't stray too far. Don't betray me now. Don't go sleeping around on me now. I expect you to be faithful. I'll see you guys back here real soon. Take care.